Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to Monday. Monday all day long. It's just Monday, but Lord, it's a beautiful Monday. I mean, it's unnaturally warm out there, but yet at the same time, it's moderate. So it's like, I could go like this, like maybe all year long. Leaves changing color, still walking around in shirt sleeves. I'm digging it. And all that to say, happy days and Boomer's on the board. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Hi, honey. I'm home.
Nice to have you back.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me be gone.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I'm glad you had some good times.
I did. Boomer gave me a couple of days off.
That's right.
It's cool.
It's cool.
Yeah. So, the lovely Charlene and I, we had... We recognized the fact that our little man, our grandson, his like first true soccer season was coming to an end, and we thought we haven't seen a single game, and so this became the sojourn to go and see in the faraway places where they are stationed, the opportunity to see the little man play soccer. Got to see 2 games. Flew up there, dude. I'm telling you, we flew up there. I got all the grandparent points because we flew up there, did not even go to the house, went straight from the airport to the soccer game in the pouring rain, in the dark, in the cold, and loved every second of it.
That's awesome.
And then the best game was the sunshiny one on Saturday.
Right.
Sweet. Yeah, many thanks, by the way, to Scott Buttram from the Trustful Tribune and to Lee from Huntsville for sitting in for me and guest hosting par excellence. So I appreciate you. And in fact, I actually talked to the manager from the Huntsville station, Boomer, while I was gone on Friday. And I talked to him at like 2:40 in the afternoon. He's like, so, you've got a guest on the show, I assume. And I said, yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay. He goes, I tuned in earlier. I thought, that's not Phil's voice, but he's doing a good job. I said, oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. All right, listen, enough chatter. We got a great show laid on for you today. Number one, right out the gate, we're going to be talking about some latest developments. I'm talking like in the last few days. Of school choice. We're calling this one Choosing Choice because right now, I'm just going to be honest with you. The Republicans in Alabama are being dusted by the other states. I'm talking about left behind, like left there just with their jaws hanging open, just standing there watching people leave them behind. That's the way it is. It's almost like you're at the starting gate and you just forgot to start your engines. It's ridiculous. Right now, we are being left behind by other states that are recognizing that choice in education is really the way to go. So number one, out the gate, choosing choice. What, you're looking at me like something's up.
I am. Well, you didn't actually do the sound effect.
Did I jump right into
You just went into the dippers.
Have I been gone that long?
You've been gone that long.
Hey, at 3 o'clock, Ryan Cantrell from the American Federation for Children is going to be on with us. American Federation for Children is one of the leading proponents of school choice in the nation. Ryan Cantrell, 3 o'clock. And then apparently I have the last 2 parts of a triple dipper to talk about. Hit it, buddy. Golly.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you gotta know.
Oh, Lord God. So you heard the first one, choosing choice. That's up. And then number 2, the speaker rodeo. I'm talking about they are roping goats and herding cats down in up in D.C. The speaker rodeo. It's not just like, hey, are we going to vote for Jim Jordan or aren't we? They now have 9 people on the ballot. And oh, by the way, one of them's from Alabama. So 9 people. It's a whole speaker rodeo. We'll talk about that, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, to borrow the phrase, wars and rumors of wars. I read an article in Axios. Oh, Phil, did you go to Axios? Yes, I did. Axios has an article that says that this may be one of the most disruptive times in the world since World War II. I'm not sure they're wrong. So we're going to talk about it. Wars and rumors of wars. That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, Boomer, can I move along now? Is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Let me jump into my opening comments, my monologue here. And once again, I want to thank y'all at Southern Immediate Care for being the sponsor of the daily Rightside Way monologue. Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics operating throughout our listening area in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 5 locations around Birmingham. Open 7 days a week, y'all. Owned by a Rightside ruffian, thank you very much. But yes, Southern Immediate Care, you check them out. They're open for 7 days a week. You can get in when you need to. All right, let me jump in here. So In another one of my monologues just this past week, I talked about calling out evil for what it is. I mean, it's important that we not mince words or equivocate, hesitate, or vacillate when we see that which is evil playing out in front of us. Courage is not found in the knowledge that evil exists. Courage is found in confronting it. But just yesterday, it occurred to me as I read a remarkable story in the news that too many of us choose not to have the mindset that evil is even a thing. I mean, let me tell you, it is. And perhaps more so now than at any time in my life, I believe that evil is feeling rather unchained. Evil is almost becoming rabid in its attempts to tear down the very fabric of our society. And I'm not saying that because I believe that we should all be living in fear or living isolationist or becoming so hypersensitive that we lose the ability to have joy or be so anxious about it that we have no peace. Not at all. I'm here to tell you today that despite everything going on around us, it is possible still to live large, to be a part of something bigger than oneself, to have joy in your core and a peace that makes no sense of the world. And all of it, despite the fact that your eyes are wide open and you can see that evil is working to destroy it all. What I'm saying is you can be well, despite the fact that you can see the ongoing fight between darkness and light. But it might take courage. So I was compelled to start writing this one based on a story that I came across this past weekend. The story was of a guy named Masab Hassan Yusuf, a Palestinian. Yusuf is the son of one of the founding members of Hamas. He was raised in Hamas. He was raised to hate Jews and to believe that the extermination of Israel was just a position to take. In his own words, he said, quote, "I had to be honest with myself. Even though Hamas gave me advantages, I was like a prince in that world, but I did not like them. I turned against even my own blood." You see, Yusuf went on to say that in 1996, he became aware of things that he had never seen before. He said that his eyes were open to the fact that the leadership of Hamas killed so many of their own people. He said this, he said, quote, "I was born at the heart of Hamas leadership, and I know them very well. They don't care for the Palestinian people. They don't regard human life." He went on to say that Hamas is less about nationalism and securing land for the Palestinians. It's more about serving Iran and trying to establish an Islamic caliphate. In his words, they just use the Palestinian people as human shields. Yusuf wound up converting to Christianity. He became a spy for Israel. You talk about a bold stance. But it began, though, when he was willing to see things for what they are and decide that he would not sit still and just allow evil to have its way. But you know, evil is not generally one person's problem. Too often we think of something as having nothing to do with us. I mean, evil's just over there or just among those people. Let's be clear. Evil is evil, and it does not sleep. Evil is not generally choosy. Evil may even have its chosen target today, but once that target is vanquished, evil looks for the next target. Which goes to the heart of another story that I came across this weekend. In the second story, also set in the Israel-Gaza conflict, a man by the name of Shadi Kolul gave a warning to Christians everywhere that Hamas is not just interested in killing Jews. Kolul is a Christian. He's also a former Israel Defense Forces paratrooper. In an interview on Fox News, Kolul was very deliberative in his comments when he said, quote, "This is not a war for only Jews against Hamas. It's a fight of light against darkness." Kolul doesn't live a comfortable, carefree life. He's a member of the minority Arameans who live on the border of Lebanon in an area that sees Hezbollah attacks regularly. He's also the president of the Christian Aramean Society of Israel, an organization that encourages its youth to join the Israeli Defense Forces. Kolul says that taking a stand against evil is necessary because evil is prepared to attack and tear down everyone. Everyone. He said this, he said, quote, "We as Israelis are fighting this fight together with Jews and Christians and Muslims and Druze and Arameans like us. We fight this together with Jews in order to defend the values of light of our actually common Judeo-Christian values that our democracies are built in." Kolul also points out that even moderate Arabs are at risk. So here's the deal. Set aside any thoughts that what I'm recounting to you is simply about the fight against Hamas, because it's more than that. What you just heard there was a recounting from two different men raised in two different places, one on the inside of Hamas and one on the outside, and yet both telling you the same thing. That when evil is allowed to exist, when evil is allowed to go unchecked, evil then becomes less and less discriminatory about who it terrorizes. At some point, everyone's a target, because evil is evil, and that's what evil does. In the war between darkness and light, there's going to be many battles, so you pick yours. Yours might be the cultural fight to push back against transgenderism and the hypersexualization of kids. Yours may be the fight against horrible schools in which apathy and radicalism combine to trap kids into a negative education cycle. Yours might be to enter politics, try to bring things to a vote on the inside, or for that matter, support key politicians who will stand for your values from the outside. Your fight might be to save lives from abortion, or to save lives as a doctor, or to save lives as a pastor. Maybe your fight is to join an organization that's trying to shed some light and use your online skills or your writing skills or your speaking skills to help that team make changes that are necessary. The war between darkness and light, it ain't going to be over soon. The battles are going to rage for a while, and they might even get worse. Evil's emboldened right now. All the more reason for soldiers who fight for the light to fight harder. Because, y'all, the difference between those who fight in the darkness and those who fight in the light is that those of us who fight in the light, we can see where we're fighting, and we can see why it's all worth it. We know where we're going. And oh, by the way, we're also fighting on our home turf. One of the greatest speeches ever delivered dealt with this concept of standing in the face of evil and acting as a soldier of light. Ronald Reagan, he made his political name with that speech, which is still today referred to as a rendezvous with destiny. In the closing statements of that epic speech, Reagan said this, and I'm going to quote it. It's a little long, but bear with me. He said, "You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't do it in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have to have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. So we'll preserve this for our children, this last best hope of man on earth, or else we'll sentence them to take the last step into the 1,000 years of darkness. This is a fight worth having. Darkness and light. I'm telling you right now, we can see the ground we're standing on, and that's where the light is. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, there you have it, darkness and light. And listen, those two things, those two guys, they nailed it. One is seeing it from the inside, the other was seeing it from the outside, both of them calling it what it was. It was evil, and it is non-discriminatory when it lashes out. Evil may have a target for today, but it may have more targets by tomorrow. And the only way you stop it is by having the courage to stand up to it. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Yeah, making it cool to be a conservative. Text lines are open. You're welcome to text it on in, 833-687-4448. That's also the call line, so if you want to call it, you can call it. 833-68-RIGHT. That's the number. A couple of them you already jumping in there. John from Huntsville. Phil, it's nice to have you back. But I have to say, Boomer's Pick'em contest crushed my soul. He said, I was one ahead of him. I was seconds away from being three ahead. And then Utah beat USC with a final second field goal. And then moments later, Miami beat Clinton. Okay, I get the whole season thing. All right. He says, the Boomer ended up one ahead of me. Now I'm tied for second with McQueen. I'm almost certain there's some shenanigans going on.
No shenanigans.
Shenanigans. He has accused you of shenanigans.
You accused me of shenanigans. Now he accused me of shenanigans.
No, Boomer. I just started a rumor.
It was just the rumor I started.
Well, let me go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I don't mean the Alabama elephant because I'm an Auburn fan. So we took it was kind of I don't want to call it too spur of the moment, but it was like, it wasn't like a long planned trip. It was just a trip that we decided we had to do because we had to go see those grandbabies.
Right.
Yeah. And I forgot to do my pick'ems because of it.
Well, remember, and everybody does, we have it on podcast form as well. I did try to tell you to do your pick'ems that one day.
Are you about to do what I told you so?
I was going to help you do it.
Okay, all right. Since he just did that, I'm going to point out the only way he can help me is because he has the administrative passcodes to go in and change the scores.
Not change, guys, not change. Only to help at the beginning.
Hey, John, make sure those are the actual scores you put in, buddy. No, but you know what though? I sent Boomer a text at one point during the weekend. I said, boom, I forgot my pick'ems again, but I am seeing some world-class soccer because I got to go see, Sweetie and I both did, go see the little man, our little man, play a great couple of rounds of soccer. Little 3-on-3 little man soccer. You know, the kind where there's really no position played. You just go with the ball. And but it was awesome. And being there, he can't beat it. And by the way, this monologue I just did, let me just say this, and like Alex Mathis has texted in, nailed it, Colonel. There's nothing like the testimony of someone who's lived it, came to see it for what it is, came out of it. Well said, sir. That's right. And I know Allie, so I know for a fact that she's got the peace that surpasses all understanding. And I'll just tell you right now, folks, listen, I'm just gonna lay it out there. You know where I stand. I'm going to tell you every single day that I believe that Jesus is Lord. Well, I'm going to tell you I've had peace when it made no sense to have peace. I've been in places where peace did not seem to exist, and yet I was peaceful. I slept like a baby in Baghdad. And all of that to say, I do believe it's because of my faith. I mean, we're told in Philippians 4, 6, and 7, be anxious for nothing. Do all things, but in all things, through prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. That's the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. That means it makes no sense. That means the world looks at you and goes, dude's got like peace. Why is he peaceful? It makes no sense to be peaceful. Well, they may not understand it. It surpasses all understanding. But you know what? It can guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. And so I just want to encourage you in that. These are crazy, crazy days in which we live. I'm going to describe some of it to you in a minute about why it's crazy and what's crazy about it. But the reality is this. In the middle of the crazy, I understand what it means to have an anchor. In the middle of the crazy, I understand what it means to put your feet on the rock and not on the shifting sand. So yeah, there's that. And I make no bones about it. No apologies. There it is. Mike from Eva. If we don't stand face to face with evil, we show the world and the enemy our backside. Wow, that's there's a visual. JT, Lacey Springs, again, Boomer has the keys to the castle and the lever to the gate over the moat.
Guys, y'all are blaming. Put the blame on me.
Wes from Huntsville says, light it up over there. My peace is knowing that helps usher in the time of his coming. Well, there you go. All right, y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. I mean, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. I'm talking about, wow, this one, Alabama. And I mean to say, we go send our signal like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. All right. Hey, listen, we're going to be calling in the top of the hour is going to be Ryan Cantrell from the American Federation for Children. He's been on the show a couple of times. He and one of the other guys from his organization, Corey DeAngelis. That organization has really made a name for itself in the realm of school choice. So we'll be tackling school choice for a bit with them because just in the last few days, there's been some new stuff. Pray tell, Phil, what new stuff have you got? Well, story here on Alabama Daily News. Questions grow over the impending school choice expansion legislation. Okay, right now it's almost a given. So you heard Speaker of the Alabama State House, Nathaniel Ledbetter, was here in studio at Rightside just, a couple weeks ago, Boomer, I think it was, yeah. And so Speaker Ledbetter, he said he expects there to be a comprehensive school choice bill this coming session. Now, why they couldn't do it before now, I have no idea. I mean, there really has not been a good explanation as to what it is that scares them. I'll tell you what it is that says they scared them was the teachers union. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But what we're seeing is that nationally, Alabama, which ranks at the lowest it can be in education rankings nationwide, that Alabama is also falling behind those who are trying to make dramatic changes and bring school choice to bear. School choice, if you're not familiar, I'll just say it again. School choice is the idea that confining a kid to a zip code-based schooling is really an injustice. That's like saying, well, because you live here, that's where you get to go, and I'm just sorry for you. What other place in the world do we have something like that? Well, because you live here, you can only shop at that grocery store. Excuse me? Yes. Because you live here, you can only play in that park. Why is that? Because that's the way it is. But this park sucks. I mean, it's got no swings, no slides. You know, the trails are all muddy. It's bad. Well, it's because it's where you live, kid. Sorry about you. So, I mean, this wouldn't fly in any other realm of society. Well, because you live here. Well, that's what schooling has been. For how long? Now, there's a time and a place when, maybe it might not be the best school in the nation, but you could kind of count on there being some level of excellence and some level of, pushing forward in standards that made sense. And again, some cities, some schools, some districts better than others. But not like we're seeing now. Here's the other thing. Aside from the fact that public education is perhaps one of the few places in the nation where they can tell you that because of where you live, you have to do it this way or do it right there. Here's the other thing. Where else can you think of that you're allowed to just simply fail and then keep getting resupplied with money the next year? Like no repercussions. Well, your school is apparently not up to par. Here's your full appropriation, plus a raise for all your employees, and let's see what happens this year. Well, apparently you failed for another year. Well, we're glad, though, to love on you, hand you another 3% pay raise for your employees, and oh, by the way, we're going to give you more days off. Well, you failed again. I'm sorry you keep failing. I don't think you understand. We want you not to fail. But we're not going to ask you to change. Just come on back in next year and see if it works. That's what education has been. And there are some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people in education. I know because some are in my family. I can just tell you right now, there are people out there whose calling it is to educate kids. There are people out there who go to work every morning with the idea of instilling more and better into those kids than just, go figure. The kind of people you would want to have working with your kids. And then there's some absolute dregs of society who could care less, who view it as a job, who join the union, don't try to tell me how to do my job. Parents have no right to tell me what to do in my job. I don't even like your kids. I'm just here because it's how I get paid. And I got tenure. You can't do a thing about it. And they're there. There are. By the way, what other vocation can you think of that has tenure? Where else can you go in the private sector and tell your boss, boss, I just don't feel like you're a good boss. I don't want to do the job anymore like this. I'm going to hit the minimum standards and you're going to have to lump it. And I got tenure, so you can't do a thing about it. Wow. Nowhere. Y'all, the only way to get around this is to bring some wholesale change. There's going to have to be. And I'm not one of those who's like, it's always about change. I mean, I was trained in leadership as a young officer. I was trained. Change is not what you do on day one. Change is maybe what you do after you've assessed and applied and checked in with your senior NCOs and made sure you know what's what and who's what and where's where and how the bones are buried. And then you know what? It's your organization, so you begin making changes. Well, I can just tell you right now, I feel like I have been there and done that in terms of watching state government and being a part of state government and in trying to make changes to state government. And I can say with great confidence and with the ability to say I feel like I've been there and done that, we need some change. School choice is where it's at. So right now, story on Alabama Daily News. Expanding school choice options in Alabama and how they'll be funded will be a significant part of the 2024 legislative session. What's still unclear, it says, is exactly what a majority of the 140 lawmakers will agree on. Okay, they point out again that this past year, we had a thing called the Price Act. I was keen on it. I liked it. We had it on the show. A friend of mine, Senator Larry Stutz, was one of the two sponsors of the bill. The other was Representative Ernie Yarbrough, who was also on the show. I think the world of Ernie. Plans to reintroduce the Price Act, Stutz does, during the 2024 session that begins in February. He says, I'm continuing to work on it. I've met with folks from the governor's office about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We don't have a final draft yet, but I'm very hopeful that we're going to have something the governor, lieutenant governor, the vast majority of the legislature are going to get behind. All right, good for him, and I'm glad. My question is, what tweaks are they going to make? Because I thought it was a pretty darn good bill before. I've heard, I was talking to some folks the other day, that one of the things they're looking at is, maybe the part that I thought was really cool was that if you finish up high school and you haven't used up all of your education dollars, that they can help you go to college with it. But I can see that being the one they take out because people were real leery of that. It was scary. Okay. The other piece of this, though, is the question of what the educrats are going to be asking for. Well, educrats, they want to see, we want to make sure that this runs through the state school board so we can track it. That's not school choice. School choice is not putting the fox in charge of the same hen house. It doesn't work like that. School choice is not saying, all you people who've been failing that make us want to get away from you, we're going to put you in charge of that. That's ridiculous. I mean, there's zero common sense built into the idea that, we need to make sure that the state school board has testing and approval authority and perhaps even accreditation authority. That's what they're trying to do. Keep your eyes on this. The goal is going to be to make sure that they don't, if the public schools, I've been doing these fake conversations the whole time. You notice that, Boober? The public schools, they have to go through testing. We should make sure that y'all go through testing. Okay, but what kind? Are you going to say that we have to have an accredited form of testing or we have to have your testing? Because if they want us to test what they test, y'all, I'm telling you, all that is another example of trying to rope in some control, and it's not going to be good. Let me, by the way, let me grab this article from the bottom of my stack. I had it in a different order, but I'm going to bring it to the top. The reason why the school choice legislation in the last session failed was because of leadership, number one. House and Senate leadership were not willing to get behind it. Let's be honest, we have a Republican super majority. It's a super duper majority. If they want to pass something, they can. If it doesn't pass, it's because they didn't want it, period. At the same time, though, story on 1819 News that came out in June of this year points out that the teachers union in Alabama, it's called the AEA, the Alabama Education Association. The teachers union, they basically took credit for killing the school choice legislation. They put it in their journal. They printed it. They said, quote, AEA brought several dangerous school choice bills to a halt. We fought until the end to amend charter and grocery tax bills till they were not harmful to community schools. Right. They went on to also say SB 202, which was the Price Act. SB 202, the School Choice Voucher Bill, known as the Price Act. With your help, AEA worked tirelessly to defeat this legislation as it would have been detrimental. Okay. What they're saying there? What they're saying is that they don't want anything that makes them look like they weren't doing their job. What they want is status quo, because status quo is comfortable to the educrats. Well, our kids deserve better than comfortable. Our kids deserve to know that someone's leaning forward in the foxhole. Our kids deserve to know that someone is out there literally saying, there's a better way, follow me. And right now in Alabama, the only way you're going to get there, is by allowing comprehensive school choice, because then the parents will have the say. And if someone's to blame, you can blame it on the parents then, AEA. At that point, you can say, well, your kid failed, but he wasn't in our school. Right now, the kids are failing, and they are in your school. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come back. We'll put a kind of a wrap up on some of these sourcing of articles that I've got. I'm going to tell you about other states. Oh, my gosh, the other states. Things are happening like by the day now. I mean, Corey DeAngelis from the American Federation of Children, he says the dam is breaking on school choice. We'll talk about it. And then top of the hour, Ryan Cantrell calling in from American Federation for Children. We'll talk to him about the same. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. I'm saying making common sense like a superpower. Hey, so we're on this topic of school choice, choosing choice. That's number one on the Triple Dipper. So just so you know, right this very minute, it is what Corey DeAngelis from the American Federation for Children is calling a dam breaking. Where is that article? I'll find this one. Let me just hang on. I got two or three with his name in it. But yeah, I tell you what. Here's this. This is brand spanking new. Local channel, WOAI out in Dallas-Fort Worth. Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, continuing to urge state lawmakers to pass a school choice bill. Abbott spoke on Monday at a parent empowerment rally at the state capitol. The Texas Senate passed a $500 million school choice bill last Thursday. It would give $8,000 in public funding every year to each qualifying student to help pay for private school or other education costs. The House has opposed such proposals. House members may start discussing the bill as soon as this week. So what's happening there, just so you know, Texas, they're in session right now. And their state legislature is like, whoo, we're going to get busy on some school choice. And they have had their ups and downs on it just like we have. But they're busy. And their governor right now is calling for it. Now, Governor Kay Ivey here in Alabama, she did say, and it was kind of like there's not been a lot of push. There's not been a lot of overt mention of what the plans are. But she did say in a recent interview with our friend Todd Stacy from Alabama Daily News that she believed the time was finally now for school choice. Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Thank you very much. But then here's this. How about this one? North Carolina. This story came out September 27th, so just right at about 3 weeks ago. North Carolina becomes the 9th state to pass universal school choice, but it was the first to do it without a GOP trifecta. What does that mean? Well, they got the House, the Senate, but they didn't have the governor. In other words, the parts you have to have in place to pass those laws, they didn't have all the three, all right? The three-legged stool to pass legislation requires the House and Senate for passage, the governor to sign it into law. The governor could choose to veto it. The governor has vetoed things in the past in North Carolina. But this year, they went ahead and showed him they were serious. They had majorities in the Senate and the House with enough co-sponsors to prove that if he vetoed it again, that they would have the ability then to override his veto. Woohoo! So Republicans in North Carolina and Arizona, it says, can pass universal school choice, then all red states should be able to get the job done and empower all families. A story on Fox News, September 27th. And by the way, that governor in North Carolina, that Democrat governor, just back in June, he actually declared a, quote, state of emergency about Republican school choice bills. A state of emergency. Like, what are you going to do? You going to lock down the society again because maybe we'll wear masks to protect them from your school choice public state of emergency? But yeah, North Carolina didn't even have a Republican in every place necessary, but they still got it done. How about this one? Louisiana. Here's big doings. So, story on the Wall Street Journal, dated 4 days ago. It says Louisiana was once a pioneer in school choice. After Hurricane Katrina in 2005, New Orleans rebuilt its schools as an all-charter system. They also enacted a private school voucher program in 2008 when Bobby Jindal was governor. And then came Governor John Bel Edwards, a Democrat, who has now stood in the way since he took office in 2016. It says last year he vetoed 2 bills that would have allowed families with children who weren't reading at grade level or had special needs to get state-funded education dollars to go to schools of their choice. Just basically saying, nope, not going to have it. But this year it says the Republican-controlled State House passed an even more expansive school choice proposal by a vote of 61-37. Now, the Senate never took it up in Louisiana. But now, here's what just happened. It kind of flew under the radar. The press doesn't want to talk about this. But in one of the things that some consider to be a bellwether, of things to come, John Bel Edwards was term limited, the governor of Louisiana. He was term limited. And believe it or not, just 2 weeks ago, did you hear about this? A lot of people didn't. 2 weeks ago, a Republican won that seat. A Republican won the seat for governor on a campaign that was in part on school choice. What does that tell you? So a guy named Jeff Landry, who had been in Congress, ran for governor, got 52% of the vote. His own campaign website says, quote, "No child should be trapped in a failing school. And if a school cannot adequately educate its students, those students should be given the ability to obtain an education worthy of the commitment that we have made to them." Yeah. And then lastly is this one from Fox News again. This is the one from Corey DeAngelis I mentioned. Governor Mike DeWine, this story came out just about, 2 months ago. Mike DeWine of Ohio, $86 billion budget, included a pro-school choice policies. So you've got Ohio just went all in on school choice, as Corey DeAngelis. The dam is breaking for the government school monopolies. Arizona, West Virginia, Iowa, Utah, Arkansas, Florida, Oklahoma, all in the last 2 years. Texas considering it right now. North Carolina just did it. I'm just telling you, folks. Alabama, listen, you better pony up, people, because the reality is this thing polls so high. I mean, you can look at the polling on school choice, and it's bipartisan favorable. But for Republicans, it polls so high that it is almost a lose if you don't do it. And there's only so long you can keep running down this road of, well, we just don't think the bill was strong enough. Oh, crap. You know you can. You know you can. You just don't want to because you're scared. It's time to stop, take assessment of where we are, and realize that just handing them their appropriation every year and hoping they do a little better with the pay raise we gave them to show them that we love them, that's not going to cut it. That can't cut it. It hasn't cut it yet. It has been years since Alabama was climbing in the polls with some measure of consistency. And it is time now for the Alabama legislature to get it done. To get it done like we did in 2013 when we came out there with the first school choice bill in the middle of a time when the AEA had what we thought was more sway then. All right, coming back now at top of the hour, Ryan Cantrell, American Federation for Children. We'll talk to him about school choice on a broad scale. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio, Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studio. Man, we got local, we got state, we got national, sometimes the international. And yeah, we cover down on all of it. Like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, listen, there's an organization out there that is doing amazing things. I mean, there's several good school choice organizations. One of them that keeps coming to mind, though, for me, is American Federation for Children. And the American Federation for Children, I think they were in like a third of the articles that I just went through in the last half hour. But somebody who I am proud to have served with in Montgomery, who was a staffer working on issues just like this, was Ryan Cantrell, who is now the National Director of Governmental Affairs for the American Federation for Children. And he's been on the show several times. I thought I'd just reach out to him again and say, listen, hey, new developments, come on. And he said, sure. So Ryan Cantrell, how are you doing, my friend?
That's good. I'm doing great, Phil. Excited to be on with you today.
Well, thank you for making time, man. I appreciate it. Hey, listen, one of the things that really caught my eye, Corey DeAngelis, who also works with your organization, he said the dam is breaking. It does appear that we have a sort of a sweep going of Republican-led states.
It's really amazing. The last 2 years have have been incredible with the expansion of school choice. Just in 2023 alone, 17 states expanded school choice across the country. But I think what's the most incredible statistic of that is of those 17 states, 7 of them actually passed programs that allow for every single child, every single family in the state to be eligible for a school choice scholarship.
Yeah,
that is just, it's just incredible to think of where we've come over the last 2 decades. We were starting out with hyper-targeted programs that, we were really wanted to make sure that we were serving the folks who need it the most, and we'll continue to do that. And these programs do continue to do that. Every single program out there that does allow for every family to get a school choice scholarship also prioritizes those low-income families that need it the most. But it also allows those folks who may be just over what an income limit might be, but who are still struggling, working 2 jobs to pay for their kids to go to private school. And really, that's what all of this is about. It's about empowering parents to make those decisions without having to sacrifice, the quality time they want to spend with their families at home in order to do that.
Well, let me ask you something. In your position, you're now the National Director of Governmental Affairs, so you're interacting with, I'm sure, state legislators and other public officials and school boards and all of it. And so I'm sure you've heard every excuse and seen every argument, and you know what the resistance can be. But despite the fact that there are good organizations like yours, I think it also seems to be coalescing around what you just said, an empowerment of parents. I think parents are more empowered right now, and as one state, then 2 states, then 7 states makes a decision, all it does is empower people in other states to recognize what they can have too.
That's right. And I think, that's what we saw in 2023. I think that's why you've seen this flood of states go to, quote unquote, universal programs that allow all families. They're doing that because they saw what Arizona did in 2022. Arizona was the first state to really go all in on this. Governor Ducey, really leading the charge, state legislators in that state, Republicans with a 1-seat majority in both chambers. Everybody got on board with this decision and moved forward, and then you saw the trickle-down effect from there with 7 more states over the course of the last 12 months enacting universal school choice. So, but it's no surprise. Parents are super interested in this right now. Families are super interested in this, and who wouldn't want to have more say over where their child goes to school? But we're seeing super majorities across every party, across every demographic, and polling shows that they support school choice and giving these options to families. So, yeah, Corey's exactly right. The dam is breaking, and I think it's just going to get even better from here.
Well, and listen, you and I both know Alabama pretty well. You're seeing a broad picture now. You're seeing the big picture actually nationwide. But speak to us like where our listeners are right now here in Alabama. I mean, back when we passed the Accountability Act in 2013, it was a landmark piece of legislation, and we almost had to just kind of run the table, so to speak, to get it in there with the fear. I remember either Del Marsh or Mike Hubbard one saying, the fact that we passed this bill is living proof that our offices weren't bugged, and yet here we are now. We have a super duper majority in the Alabama State House, and yet the AEA is bragging this past session that they take credit for having killed this bill. What are your thoughts on where we're headed? We're hearing good things, but what do you know about Alabama school choice?
I mean, I think at the core of all of it is exactly what you just said. Is you have a teachers union out there who is dedicated. I mean, this is what they work day in, day out to ensure that they do, is to fight back against these policies that would allow families to have more of an option. And truth be told, if I were selling a high quality product, I wouldn't be all that concerned about, getting competition in another place. High quality public schools shouldn't have anything to worry about, and I don't think they will. We haven't seen public schools, defunded in any other state where school choice has been expanded. All this is it provides an option for families, but at the end of the day, I mean, it is their political clout, I guess, in Montgomery right now that keeps us from getting things done. I mean, when you look at when you were in office, Phil, and when that got done in 2013, it was largely because the Republican supermajority at the time really pushed back on AEA's power, and despite the fact that they were spending tens of millions of dollars politically, they were able to. We were still able to overcome that. But it's this political power that really does keep us from getting what we need to get done. That's one of the reasons that AFC started a super PAC recently, AFC Victory Fund, that's fully dedicated to spending. We're going to try to spend $10 to $12 million this next year, ensuring the right people are elected and pushing back against the teachers union political power in these states. And Alabama is just a perfect example of one of those states that needs some help in that regard.
Totally agree, and I'm so glad y'all are doing that, because I don't want to just say money talks, but the reality is money also helps people buy campaign signs and do the things it takes to run for office,
right.
which is no small thing. Especially when you're running for the state legislature. I mean, my race alone, I had a 4-county race, and I think I personally raised and spent $770,000 or something like that in my last campaign. So it's incredibly expensive, and it takes organizations like y'all out there to get that done. So I'm so glad y'all are taking that stance. Let me ask you this too. Going back to Alabama just for a minute, Governor Kay Ivey recently came out in an interview with Todd Stacey and said, basically that she does foresee some measure of a school choice, even a voucher type program or an ESA program bill coming out this year. First time she's been on the record seeming like she is leaning into it. Now, there hadn't been a whole lot from her since then, but what I'm saying is it sounds like the governor is willing to sign a bill like that. Are you guys working with, or have you got your hand in the opportunity to help people draft this legislation?
I mean, I think there are lots of groups that are on the ground working, whether it's with the governor's office or whether it's the state legislature. There are a lot of folks I think they're going to be pushing broad-based school choice programs. I'm super excited to have seen the governor come out in full-throated support of this, and I think her exact quote was she wants to make Alabama the most school choice friendly state in the country. Man, I look forward to being a part of that, because I mean it's that. Alabama needs it. If you look at where our education system is today, we're not doing any better than we were a decade ago, and that's despite the fact that we're pouring billions of dollars in additional resources into the public schools. So I'm in favor of handing some of that money over to parents and letting them do what's best for their kids. But I'm really excited. You mentioned at the very beginning of this, the dam is starting to break nationally. I think we're seeing the same thing here in Alabama. Lawmakers are seeing the writing on the wall, and I think this could be the year where it gets done.
Well, it's got to, because we're down to the wire. I mean, there's not much further down towards the bottom of the barrel that we can go as an institutional system. I think the only way we can see this, not continue to fail and get reappropriated and fail and get reappropriated is to break things up and put a little free market into the school systems. And then I guarantee you, we're going to watch those schools. They're going to rise to the level of their competition, I believe. And
so that's what we've seen. That's what we've seen everywhere across the country. Study after study has shown, school choice programs not only improve education outcomes for those who participate in the program, but it also improves educational outcomes for those who stay in the public school system. So the fact that we haven't done this yet, boggles my mind a little bit. It shows that we haven't quite paid as close attention to the trends and the positive outcomes in other states. But I guess better late than never at this point, and it's time for us to get it done.
All right, well, let's get her done. In the meantime, I'm glad you're a part of it. Ryan Cantrell, National Director of Governmental Affairs for American Federation for Children. We appreciate your time today, bud.
Hey, thanks, Phil.
All right, take care. All right, well, there you have it, choosing choice. We're going to keep doing this until they do something about it. And then what we're going to do is take victory laps as we watch things get better. In the meantime, we're going to move to number 2 on the Triple Dipper, the Speaker Rodeo. What? Yep. We are herding cats and roping goats in the Speaker Rodeo. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Yeah, making it so cool to be a conservative. I'm talking about saving the world one soundbite at a time. I got several text messages. I'll catch up on a few of those, and then I'll close out this topic on choosing choice. Gary from Decatur says, if my texter will open up the text. Apparently Gary has a cryptic text. He says, I don't know, Phil. Looks like the UAW is striking for what equates to tenure now. Must be taking lessons from the teachers union. Wow. Okay. That's wow. Anita from South Huntsville says, besides public education, in what other system are people assigned the resources they get by the government in the name of equality for the good of the community? I think it's the one that has the sickle and the hammer as a logo. Yes, that would be communism. Thank you so much, Anita. Sheila from Madison, giving parents real choices on how to educate their children is the only way education will ever improve holistically. Government-run education continues to fail our children, which is why almost a third of students cannot read at grade level. Nailed it. Thank you, Sheila. Great comment on the show. I don't know if you saw Jimmy from Somerville to give us a great compliment. Thank you, Jimmy. We appreciate you. Appreciate that very much. Cameron from Decatur. If you haven't read Mike Ball's book, it's very well written, a real page turner. I have not read Mike Ball's book. Did not know Mike Ball even had a book. I assume you mean former state representative Mike Ball. If that's the case, I need to find out about it. Brian from Huntsville, curious. What happens to teachers with tenure if school choice removes many students from the school they work for? Well, first of all, that's the argument they make, that we'll all be losing our jobs. You'll put us out in the street. And the truth is they won't. They won't. Because there has yet to be, and by the way, if there's a school that's so bad, and Brian, I know Brian knows this, if there's a school that is so bad that like the student population just like bails and there's nobody coming to school there anymore, then those teachers didn't need their jobs in the first place. But you know what they'll do? They'll reassign them to the district office or something. You know, they'll make sure they drive a bus to keep their benefits or something. They do. I mean, it's amazing what they do with sorry teachers to make sure they don't have to leave the system, or because it's so hard to get rid of them with tenure, they just reassign them to places where they can do no harm. John from Brownsboro, my kids are not some price tag to be thrown out there to justify the school's lack of leadership, learning, and support for the children. If my child isn't learning or finds themselves in a hostile environment that they refuse to solve, that's on them to improve their practices, not me, just to throw more money at it. If a horse falls dead in the last 10 races, you don't give him steroids, you fire the trainer or the jockey, whichever's holding him back, and give him the help he needs to improve. Okay, I can't add to that. That was good. That was great. You want to text in your comments? 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Last comments I've got on this is not only is the dam breaking on Republicans who recognize they have to finally move ahead on school choice, what you're also seeing is that Democrats, liberal progressives, are starting to go, hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. I have kids too, and I just don't want them to, grow up ignorant because I chose to, follow the party line with the unions. So a story came out in the Federalist, dated a couple days ago. The headline is, "Don't look now, but Slate just made an argument for school choice." Slate, that that highly liberal periodical. Federalist points out, they say, the politics of public education makes for strange bedfellows. With test scores continuing their post-pandemic downward spiral, even the leftists over at Slate realize that American education needs serious change to be able to turn the tide. Points out this past weekend, it says, mother and writer named Kendra Hurley applauded Columbia University's decision now to close down its Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. She held the institution responsible for what she called a decades-long travesty. What she's pointing out here is that her children have been in New York City public schools, and the New York City public schools have failed her children, and a lot of those teachers came out of Columbia. They use a thing called the balanced literacy approach. What is the balanced literacy approach? It's an unrealistic methodology for reading instruction. The approach is founded on the rather nebulous idea that, quote, human beings are innately capable of reading. Did you know that, Boomer? You and I, we were just born capable of reading. It's intrinsic in us. We can just read if we just let you alone and put you in a literacy-rich environment, they call it. So basically, if you slept in a library when you were a kid, you should be able to read.
I mean, that doesn't make sense for me personally.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I definitely would not.
Well, and your parents are big on education.
They're big on education.
Your mama taught my kids. But we all memorized phonics when we were kids, how to sound things out, what the letters mean, how the letters come together, to form words. And they say this regardless of the more traditional way, which is too authoritarian and requires direct instruction.
Stop.
Yes. Yes. Anyway, the article points out this. It says educrats rely on complacency inherent in what they call the uncomplicated relationship to maintain their stranglehold on education. Like it or not, studies have shown again and again that parental engagement is a vital part of student success. And educrats themselves are beginning to admit this, though they strive to also then dictate the terms of that engagement. All right, that's the point. The article's great. It points out that this article in Slate from a liberal is like saying, wait a minute, you guys have been doing a sorry job. I'm glad you're doing away with that program because it's horrible for my kids, and I'm a parent, and I know what's best for my kids. Oh, is that the way it works? Well, then they're beginning to admit it, but then they want to hang on to, okay, so how do we control the parent-child relationship? How do we make sure that they can have a little something, but only when it's a something we say they can have? That's what they're going to try and do with your school choice bill this coming year. You watch. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one, I'm talking about Alabama. And I mean to say this show, man, goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, you hear ads playing during the breaks, right? And that's how things operate. You got to have ads to be able to stay on the air. Well, listen, just so you know, Rightside Radio, we are a standalone business. All right, the station you listen to us on, they don't own us. We own the content. We send the show to them. And the only way we can continue to support that is to have the revenue like any other business, part of which is generated through people buying ads. So if you want to advertise on Rightside Radio, if you listen to the show and you're thinking, man, Boomer and Phil got it going on, I want to be a part of that. I know those Rightside ruffians will support my business. Well, you're probably right. And we'd love to have you. And the way it works is you don't call the station, you have to call us directly. So go to the advertising and contact tab on rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. Click on advertising, send us a message, and we'll get back to you ASAP. We'd love to have you in the fold. That's rightsideradio.org. Advertising, send us a message, and we'll be there. All right, a couple more texts, and I'll jump into my next topic. Mike from Rogersville. He says, hi there, Mike from Rogersville. Remember that not one kid in the Baltimore School District can do math at grade level, not even one. That is like some next level awful. John from Harvest, every time the topic of school choice comes up, I'm reminded of, I don't know what this is, Pornell's iron law bureaucracy, which states in any bureaucratic organization, there will be two kinds of people. Those devoted to the goals of the organization, gives me an example. And then he says, the iron law states that in every case, a second group will gain and keep control of the organization. It will write the rules and control promotions within the organization. True school choice is the only way to break the iron law for the good and the benefit of kids. That was an amazing text. I think I could do an entire monologue on that text. Thank you, John. Appreciate you. And I think that's it. Okay. Let's go to number 2 on the Triple Dipper. Do we have any kind of a sound effect that sounds like a rodeo? Anything? Nothing. Nothing in the entire repertoire. Nothing that sounds like whips cracking and people going, yeehaw. No.
Nope, nothing.
Okay. Do we have some jackassery?
We do have jackassery.
Thank you.
We do have that.
Thank you very much.
That's a farm animal.
There you go. It's a farm animal. So number 2 on the Triple Dipper, I'm calling this the Speaker Rodeo. Oh, my soul. They are out there in D.C. right now roping goats and herding cats. That's the way this is going. Crack that whip. Hee-yah! I'm just saying, the Speaker Rodeo, it's nuts, y'all. It's absolutely nuts. And it has gone from nuts to nuttier to nuttiest, perhaps, at this point. We have now gone from having a couple of guys, Steve Scalise, Jim Jordan, didn't get Scalise. Jordan kept his name in the ring. Jordan went to the floor 3 times. Even though the caucus voted for him, 25 Republicans said, no, we ain't going to do it. Why? They're moderate. They don't like conservatives. So we didn't get Jordan, who I think would be a great speaker. And by the way, let me back up and just say this. I believe that Jim Jordan would have been a great speaker. I also believe that the removal of Kevin McCarthy, this was not the time. Not the time. I understand that Matt Gaetz had the opportunity. I understand the grievances that Matt Gaetz had because they grieved me too. I did not like the fact that Kevin McCarthy rolled over and did a continuing resolution omnibus spending bill, which basically was a continuation of Pelosi's budget. I get it. Look where we are right now. The world is in conflict. The continuing resolution is unfortunately now up again in the next, 3 weeks? And we don't have a Speaker of the House to help herd the cats. So timing was just awful. That being said, the fact that we are now 3 weeks down the road and we've gone from Scalise Jordan to no Scalise, just Jordan, to now we have 9 candidates. 9. So news broke a little while ago, and we expected it. It wasn't really like a big news flash, but the Republican House caucus is meeting this evening. That's the whole body of Republicans meeting this evening to vote within the body again for who they want to see come out as Speaker. Will there be one who gets a majority? I don't know. There's 9 to choose from. What are they going to do? Whittle it down? All right, fellas, here's the deal. Cast your ballots. We'll take the top 4. Once we get the top 4, we'll take the top 2. I don't know. Is it going to be a vote by attrition? I don't know how they're going to do this. All I know is you have 9. 9. And they come from all walks of what I would call Republican politics. Some are moderate. Some are true conservatives. Some are what I would call energetic and go get 'em. Some are brand new freshmen. Some are old and been around for a while. But why is it taking so long? Well, there's one article that I pulled up off of Fox. It's an opinion piece by a guy named Christopher Bedford. And Bedford wrote this thing, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna have to agree with that. That a part of the reason why this is taking so long is, number one, the establishment is mad. And number two, the establishment thrives off of chaos. Because when you have chaos, you don't have any opportunity for spending cuts. When you have chaos, you don't have anybody out there with the ability to truly enact change, because you have no choice but to get a little something done to keep government going while you continue to fight the chaos. Well, that's where this article kind of leads us. It says Republican infighting in the House of Representatives since the ouster of Speaker Kevin McCarthy isn't so much creating dysfunction as it is exposing dysfunction. It says over the past 10 months, strange coalitions have been built and dispersed, candidates have risen and fallen, private animosities have burst into public view, and the D.C. legacy media has proven itself incapable of explaining any of it. But it points out, and by the way, I'm a long-time Republican. I have always been a Republican, but it's still frustrating to watch. It says the grand old party, the GOP, has long suffered from misalignment with its donor class and leadership holding completely different priorities from its voters. And that's been true for a long time. The donor class is very often not quite aligned with what I would call the grassroots voters within the Republican Party. And yet, the times that we have seen breakaways on that have wound up ruining the Republicans' chances of doing more. For instance, when Ross Perot, who I just finished reading this past weekend, I just finished reading On Wings of Eagles, the story of Ross Perot rescuing his men from Iran when the Shah was deposed. Amazing story. I have the utmost respect for Ross Perot. But when Ross Perot ran for president, some say that's why we got Bill Clinton. And I tend to agree. He split the votes. But it points out in this article from Bedford that, we're looking at right now the fact that Jim Jordan was just derailed, and yet he was a fixture in conservative circles. He's a co-founder of the House Freedom Caucus, which, by the way, think about this. What more example can you have of political leadership than the ability to step into the fray in D.C. and help start something called the Freedom Caucus? That was a place where it was not welcome, and for a long time there were no more than like a handful of them. Now there's like 50 in the caucus. They also, by the way, helped get rid of John Boehner, who is now a marijuana lobbyist. Former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, now reduced to being a marijuana lobbyist. Jordan, though, even though all that was said about his conservative bona fides, he went on to earn a ranking position on the Oversight Committee. He was able to work with Kevin McCarthy. He still held sway with conservative members while also maintaining productive relationship with the House leadership. So all said and done, he would have been a great one, I think. They weren't going to have it. The establishment was not going to have it. Not going to have it. To be clear, it says, since the drama over McCarthy's replacement began 2 weeks ago, Republican voters have made their wishes known. So yeah, they don't have any way of saying they didn't know what the base wanted. They know exactly what the base wanted because the base told them in no uncertain terms. They got more small donor donations into Republican coffers, along with angry phone calls to those who were opposing Jim Jordan, than they had. I mean, it was so much so that some of the whiners on the Republican establishment side were saying, Jordan, you got to tell these people to stop pressing down on us. It's not helping. Okay. Here's the thing. It might be revenge against, the enemies of Scalise. It also might be revenge against what Matt Gaetz did. But more importantly, what this article is saying is those who are the benefits or the beneficiaries of appropriations, like things like continuing defense reauthorizations and resolutions and omnibus bills, they thrive on weak leadership. They thrive on it. And a hollowed out speakership, it points out, benefits politicians who want to keep the good times rolling for their donors, and it cripples those men and women who come to Washington to make a difference. That's where we are right now. That's the reason why this article, and I tend to agree, says that we don't yet have a new speaker. Because those that are in the establishment, those that are the spending class, they thrive on chaos. And they love it when we have chaos because they can get what they want out of chaos a whole lot easier than they can when everybody's able to pay more attention. I'm going to come back in a minute from this break before I'll take a call first, Boom. But I've got 9 House Republicans to break down for you. Before I do that, though, let me just take a call from line 1, Tom in Athens. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Good, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
As far as the speaker thing, I'm a little bit selfish because I live in an area where I want somebody to take care of us. And I thought, who is the senior Republican conservative in the House that's from the South?
Are you asking me, or are you about to tell me something?
Yeah, I'm just asking you. I mean, I had to look it up just to make sure, but it's Mike Rogers.
Well, Mike Rogers is not running for it, but I'll tell you who is Gary Palmer from Alabama, who's number 5 in the House.
Right. And I just thought about he's been there, he knows the ropes, and maybe he doesn't want to, because nobody's brought his name up. And I just thought, God, what we need a guy from our area. I would love to see a guy from area and that's from the South, that's from Alabama, that's going to help take care of us, and then still have those super conservative values.
Well, then stay tuned. I'm about to tell you more about Gary Palmer, who represents Alabama's 6th Congressional District, who is the number 5 man in the House, chairs the policy committee, and was the founder of the Alabama Policy Institute, who's now put his name in the hat for speaker. So, Tom, thanks for the call, man. You got a great point. It'd be nice to have somebody from home. We'll take a break right now, Boom, and we'll come right back. We're in number 2 of the Triple Dipper, the Speaker Rodeo. Oh, yeah. Roping goats, herding cats. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower, I like to say. Hey, listen, I gotta just keep this thing going here. The speaker rodeo. So just so you know, this needs to happen. Now, I was talking to somebody the other day, and even on this show, I think I said it, that keep in mind that what we are watching, for all its warts and blemishes, that what we are watching is actually clearly an indication that we live in a democracy. There's that. Why do you say that, Phil? Well, because where else in the world are you witnessing, or can you witness, the orderly transition of major leadership power, like what we saw? I do not think that Matt Gaetz exhibited any wisdom in the way he handled this. He just went up there and decapitated the House leadership. There should have been some working things through. There should have been a plan. But he just went up there and bam, did it. And afterwards, I just can't help but wonder if Matt Gaetz started having oh crap moments when he realized they weren't going to get Jim Jordan in. I don't know. We'll never know. But here's the thing. What we're watching is the orderly transition of power by vote of the duly elected representatives of the people. Not all of which listen to their people. I get it. That's not what I'm saying. So some of y'all are out there who were quick to just go ahead and say, they're all corrupt. Everybody's on the take. Stop it. What I am saying is this. It's a freaking mess. It's a goat rope at every single turn. But where else in the world can you see this and it happened peacefully and not be considered a coup? Where else can you see this and there not be a call to arms or people pushing down the gates to make it happen? So don't be discouraged in that regard, because what this is living proof of the fact that you live in a democracy in which the people have a say, at the very least through their duly elected representatives. I know it doesn't always work out that way, but sometimes it actually does. So, that being said, once he was gone, I was like, okay, you know what? Game on. Bring me a guy. Bring me a real solid dude, somebody who can get in there and lead. And I was really excited about Jim Jordan. And I'm really bummed that he's not there now. I'm not going to be a bit surprised to also see some of the chuckleheads who were in the caucus who just like to seem to kind of string this thing along now, start nominating Jim Jordan again, even though he went to the House floor 3 times and couldn't get the votes he needed. But here's where the people are. Story on thehill.com. 2 out of 3 say the House should elect a speaker as soon as possible. In other words, people are a little concerned about world events right now. We're like, jeez. So a USA Today Suffolk University poll found that 67% of those surveyed said the House should elect a speaker as soon as possible. Meanwhile, a quarter of the respondents said they don't care whether a speaker is elected, claiming the situation curbs congressional spending of taxpayer money. It doesn't. It doesn't. They may not be able to pass new legislation, but you're not seeing it curb anything, because what's going to happen is they're going to wind up having to pass a continuing resolution in about 3 weeks, and it's going to just continue Nancy Pelosi's budgeting. It says the push to elect a speaker soon was observed across party lines. 86% of Democrats, 57% of Republicans, 59% of independents all support the election of a speaker as soon as possible. The House has been in a state of paralysis following the historic ousting of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Yeah, keep in mind, first time in U.S. history that's happened. Woo. Now, they made it very clear that John Boehner was not welcome back, and he chose to resign. But this is the first time there's ever been a vote from the floor to vacate the chair successfully. So yeah, there's a poll that's been done. 1,000 registered voters from October 17th through 20, a margin of error of 3.1%. 67% says they prefer that they get this done as quickly as possible. They're tired of it dragging on, and they're concerned about what would happen if they do continue to drag it on. Now, there's 9 people. Y'all, there's all God's children going to run for speaker right now. Boomer, you want to be Speaker of the House?
Not really, but might as well run.
Hey, come on.
Come on, let's
Throw
do
your
it.
name in the hat.
See what happens.
I forgot to do my pick'ems, but I can still be Speaker of the
There you
House,
go.
can't I? Why not? Anyway, the bottom line is this. 9 people are now running. You went from Scalise Jordan, from McCarthy to Scalise Jordan to just Jordan to now 9. I'm going to tell you who the 9 are after this break. And by the way, in deference to our caller Tom, I will go ahead and let the cat out of the bag that if you haven't already heard, one of them is Representative Gary Palmer, who was on the show here with us a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week ago. Congressman Gary Palmer, founder of the Alabama Policy Institute, is now putting his name in the hat to be Speaker of the House. That's interesting. All right, we'll talk about it. That and more. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios for hour number 3. It's about go-home time for a lot of you folks here on a Monday afternoon. Thank you for being with us. Yeah, I'm telling you right now, folks, we got the local, the state, the national, covering all of it like the dude just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. So we're in number 2 of the Triple Dipper, the Speaker Rodeo. All right, so the rodeo is and man, this is madness. Right now, there are 9 Republicans that have bellied up to the bar, y'all. There are 9 Republicans who have said, I'll do it. Some of whom you kind of look at and go, I expect that. And some of whom you look at and go, who? but that's where we are. So who are the 9? Let me break that down for you. You might want to know that one of them is Jack Bergman, Representative Jack Bergman. He's a Republican from Michigan. He announced his candidacy last Friday. He's a retired 3-star from the Marine Corps. Bergman's office said he is widely respected on both sides of the aisle for his national security experience and can work with both members of both parties. He says, what we need right now is a speaker who has experience leading and can put ego aside to work together for the American people, a leader who shuns permanent power and recognizes we have a current crisis of leadership. Well, he nailed that. I get it. I like the idea he's got, military experience. But right now he's also been endorsed by 4 other members, all of whom are from his delegation in Michigan. Then there's Byron Donalds. Outside of, I think I said before all this really got going, before we even knew Jim Jordan was coming, I said I could see Byron Donalds being a future Speaker of the House, and I still think he could be. But Byron Donalds has announced, a Republican from Florida, has announced his intent to run for Speaker on Friday, just a few hours after the GOP dropped Jordan. He's a member of the House Freedom Caucus. He's a hardline conservative. He also says, I'm running to become the next Speaker of the House to secure our border, fund our government responsibly, advance our conservative agenda, and expand the Republican majority. Let's get to work, he says. Then there's Tom Emmer. I am not excited about Tom Emmer. Now, Emmer is, not all bad, but Emmer is a Republican from Minnesota. This is the one that our buddy Jeff Poore said that he thought was going to wind up being like one of the top candidates. Well, here he is. Tom Emmer. He's considered to be a high-ranking kind of establishment guy. Number 3, because he's the House whip in the House Republican caucus. He's considered a front runner in the race. He's also, I believe, been endorsed already by Kevin McCarthy. So there's that. Then there's Representative Kevin Hern, Republican from Oklahoma. Who's Kevin Hern? Well, he's the chairman of what they call the Republican Study Committee. They all have there's the House Freedom Caucus, there's the Republican Study Committee, there's there's another one called the House, Thinkers, I forget what they call them. But anyway, Kevin Hern, he does have some of the same hardline conservative ideals that appeals to the Freedom Caucus. He's also considered, though, to be more centrist than Jordan was. He did, by the way, support Trump. He supported the 2020 election being a stolen election, and he voted against certifying the 2020 election. Then there's Representative Mike Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana. All right, Louisiana, that's where Scalise is from also. Mike Johnson, he's an ally of Jim Jordan's, running to replace him. He's also the chairman of the Republican Study Committee and a member of the House Judiciary. And then there's Dan Muser, Republican of Pennsylvania, running to become Speaker. He's been in Congress all of 3.5 years. He said in a post to Twitter that his campaign will be messaged on focusing on politics of inclusion. And every member of the Republican Congress, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I don't want. In this day and age, you should know better than to use the word inclusion as a Republican. You won't be taken seriously. So, Dan Muser, you're done. Then there's Austin Scott from Georgia, who surprised everybody because he was actually in the voting the other day, and he's a freshman, I believe. But Austin Scott, a conservative, he was outraged when the California Republican Kevin McCarthy was ousted. So I don't know if he's going to wind up being the guy because he's seen as being a big McCarthy ally. And then there's Pete Sessions from Texas, who's been around since 1997. He actually got beat in 2018, switched districts and came back and ran again and got reelected. So he's back. And he is saying he wants to be speaker. And then, ta-da, as of Sunday afternoon, Alabama Representative Gary Palmer running for speaker. So Gary Palmer, if you're not familiar, he's an Alabama dude. He covers much of the Birmingham area, parts of the surrounding counties. Gary Palmer, the founder of the Alabama Policy Institute. You hear our friend Stephanie Smith come on all the time. That's the Alabama Policy Institute. And Gary Palmer is the one who started it 30 years ago. He's been a fixture in conservative public policy now in the Alabama area for 3 decades. But he ran for Congress for the first time in 2014 and won. And he's now in his 5th term. And he's basically said, okay, I'll do it. I'm going to run for this. He says he prayed about it, felt like that's where he needs to be. So Gary Palmer is also, by the way, one of the 5th most powerful people in D.C.'s House Republican caucus because he's the chairman of what's known as the House Policy Committee, which is the one that sets the agendas for what they work on. So his quote is this: all of this is happening at a time when our nation is the most divided it's been in nearly 160 years. If we ignore these issues, America will decline to the footnotes of history. This does not need to be our future. But how do we change the course? With steady conservative leadership. Palmer was a big supporter of Jim Jordan. He voted for him all 3 times on the floor. Palmer is also a guy who voted against the certification of the election results in 2020, and he's an Alabama guy. So interesting to see what will happen as the votes come down. But they're going to have their meeting tonight. We'll see if anybody gets the majority they have to have. Right now, Forbes magazine is saying, and this is before Palmer put his name in, Forbes magazine is saying that the top 4 in the race are Tom Emmer of Minnesota, Byron Donalds of Florida, Kevin Hern of Oklahoma, and Austin Scott of Georgia. Whether that changes at all with Gary Palmer being in remains to be seen. And we'll get Palmer on the show as soon as we can just to find out how things are going. But that's the speaker rodeo, y'all. Tell you what, I got a couple minutes for the break. Let me see if I can take some. Man, Boomer, did you just hit a button and make the text messages come flooding in? Oh, they blew up. Thank you very much. Let me get a few of these. John from Brownsboro says, my 5-year-old likes to play word games and math puzzles with a 2-year-old sister, helping with the learning environment. Okay, all right. See, he's talking about how he's got his, I'm sorry, I didn't read, he sent me like 3 long texts. So I get you, man. Keep them going, John. That's the way, you got to have those kids doing stuff at home like that. That's huge. Devin from Brownsboro says, McQueen for House Speaker. Make sure she knows that. McQueen feeling a little under the weather today.
That's funny. So I was just writing her just to see how she was feeling.
Just tell her she's got at least 1 vote for House Speaker. Nita from South Huntsville, Matt Gaetz doesn't wash his hands after he uses the restroom. Okay, there's that. I cannot have him representing me. Okay. Lewis from Birmingham says, no offense to Tom who called in, but I guess you didn't catch what Rogers was going to do in public and still did anonymously to Jordan. He needs to be primaried out. So, yeah, I had an article, but I was running out of time. We were going to talk about that, but he's crawfishing in a big way now, Lewis. Oh, I didn't really mean that we were going to work with Democrats. I mean, I didn't really mean we were going to do that. Sure, that's what you said in your angry way. Yeah, Lewis, good points. And by the way, there is talk of him being primaried, and I think he has one contender right now who people don't know well, but we'll track that. Rap from Athens. Why has Jim Jordan not called Hunter Biden before his committee yet? Nothing going on in the House. All the investigations have stopped. Rap, you're wrong. You're just wrong. Rap, just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it stopped. It takes a whole lot in the background before you call somebody in to testify. And just so you know, Jim Jordan said today he's still real busy. They've got depositions, like 3 depositions to take next week as part of the investigation. So just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. John from Huntsville. Phil, I don't think the Republicans are ever going to be able to agree on who should be Speaker of the House. You may be right. We'll see. No, they'll be able to. Raven from Russellville schooling me. Not a democracy, all caps. It's supposed to be a representative republic, but it's not. Yes, it is, Raven. Come on, brother, stay with us. Jay from Hartselle. With no speaker, who is third in succession? I don't know. Biden's dog? I don't know. Mike from Huntsville. That's how misinformed voters are. Mike Rogers is one of the stooges from McConnell that blocked Jim Jordan. This is true. Brian from Huntsville. Trucker John for speaker. Yeah, I can vote for that. Not joking in any way. Trucker John. All right, take us to a break, Boom. We'll take that break. We'll come right back, and I'm going to number 3 on the Triple Dipper. Y'all, this is serious business. Wars and rumors of wars. It's a crazy world out there right now. And I'll lead off with a story from Axios, of all places, that says that this might be one of the craziest times we've seen in a generation. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, y'all. So number 3, triple dipper. I'm getting all 3, boom. I'm coming back in hard on a Monday. I might not have remembered my sound effect for the triple dipper. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll be in the area all day. Thank you. But yes, I am going to make all 3 dippers today, bro. All right. So number 3, triple dipper, wars and rumors of wars. All right, biblical phrase, you all know it, but it talks about signs of the times and things that you will know when there are certain things like, in this case, wars and rumors of wars. Now, I don't know what the end times look like. I heard my pastor say one time, he said, y'all, I don't know what the end times look like, but I think they look a lot like this. So there's that. The article I want to jump into to start this topic clearly paints a picture that is pretty dark. And I'm going to be honest when I say I am not prone to just go into the darkness, all right? I am not prone to being a chicken little, and I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that at all. And yet nothing in this article I could find to be a mistruth. There's a little bit of hyperbole here and there, but for the most part, it was, I believe it, to be honest with you. And it's written in Axios. Axios, yes, Axios. Phil, you went to Axios? I did. Not known for being a conservative bastion of news and commentary, but nonetheless, today's article is called Behind the Curtain, a rattled U.S. government fears that wars could spread. All right, here we go. I'm going to break this down for you in the next few minutes. They say, and I don't disagree, that never before, they say, have we talked to so many top government officials who in private are so worried about so many overseas conflicts happening all at once. Why does it matter? They say, we don't like to sound dire. This is 2 guys named Jim Vandehel and Mike Allen who write for Axios. So we don't like to sound dire. But U.S. officials say this confluence of crises poses epic concern and historic danger. Officials tell us that inside the White House, this was the heaviest, most chilling week since President Biden took office just over 1,000 days ago. Well, I got news. A lot of us on the outside of the White House have been chilled for a while with some of what's happening with that White House. But with regards to these crises, they say former Defense Secretary Bob Gates, who ran the Pentagon under both parties, under George Bush and Barack Obama, he tells us America is facing more crises right now than it has since World War II ended 78 years ago. Interesting. And he points this out. He says the White House systems overload is like this. He says there's a gigantic funnel that sits over the top of the table in the Situation Room. All the problems of the world come through that funnel to the same 8 or 10 people. And there's a limit to the amount of bandwidth those 8 or 10 people can have. Here are the top 5 that he believes, in their words, they say, could potentially spiral into something bigger. Number 1 is Israel's response to the Hamas terrorist attack. I don't think it's Israel's response per se, but I do believe that conflict could get bigger. If Hezbollah decides to jump in from Lebanon, if Iran decides to go overt with their actions, if somebody else, like say for instance, there's a crisis at the entrance from to Egypt from Gaza at the southern end of Gaza, and there's like some kind of a major humanitarian crisis, and the Egyptians do something about it or cause a problem to get worse, then yes, you're going to see things happening. 2 aircraft carrier strike groups have now gone to the region. I think it's the USS Ronald Reagan, and I'll think of the other one here in a moment. Now, forgive me, those of y'all in the Navy. That's number 1, is what is happening with the Israel-Hamas situation right now. And I'll be honest with you, I saw it, and I believe I think it makes sense to me. Israel said, we lost over 1,000 people, and Hamas then lost its right to exist. That's a quote, man, and that's heavy. How about this? Number 2, Vladimir Putin recently having a meeting in China with Xi Jinping to strengthen their anti-American alliance. There's that one. Number 3, a malicious Iran. It says it's unclear how involved Iran was in orchestrating. Well, you know what? This is a weak statement here. The bottom line is, Iran, you're the reason why it happened, and we all know it. So a malicious Iran is one of the biggest concerns that's out there right now. Will they try to further destabilize the Middle East? I don't know. Then they say there's the unhinged leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and his frequent testing of long-range nuclear-capable missiles. By the way, some of the weapon systems that we're seeing being used by Hezbollah and Hamas appear to have the markings of being made in North Korea. There's that. And then lastly, they say, is one I didn't expect to see on here, but I've thought about it a lot lately. It says a new weapon is being deployed in all of these conflicts. There's a massive spread of doctored or wholly fake videos to manipulate what people see and think in real time. The architects of these new technologies in background conversations with us, after demonstrating their new capabilities that are soon to be released, say even the sharpest eye looking for fake videos will have an impossible time detecting what's real. In other words, if Hezbollah wants to say, or Hamas wants to say, you bombed another hospital, you crazy Israelis, well, they can fake a video and get it released. And before anybody knows it's fake, it's already destroyed world opinion. What scares officials, they say, is how all 5 of these things could fuse into one situation. If that happens, it's a whole new day. The simultaneous threats it says are hitting at the very moment the American political system seems to be, and sometimes is, literally broken, like, for instance, not having a Speaker of the House. And there's also been a total collapse, they say, in people's trust in the ability to work with the opposing party, with the media, what they see on social media, or even the top secret intelligence the government relies on to measure its threats, or for that matter, just trusting government in general. All of that's legit. I couldn't find anything in the article except for some of the phraseology. You can see they leaned occasionally sometimes to what I would consider to be a leftist view. But for the most part, yeah, wars and rumors of wars, I'm saying that a lot of that matters. And I see it. Israel, Hamas, Vladimir Putin meeting with China, a malicious Iran, North Korea, and then what's happening with AI, and where does that go? We're going to come back and talk about this. You're welcome to text in or call in about it. It's 833-687-4448. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We're doing wars and rumors of wars. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. Y'all drive home time and enjoy this weather. I'm just saying. And listen, I'll tell you who else covers a lot of ground. That's Southern Immediate Care. All right, one of our sponsors on this show is Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics that covers a big swath of our listening area. They got places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 5 locations around the Birmingham area. Southern Immediate Care. They're open 7 days a week, y'all. And by the way, this is who I use. And I say that not because they advertise. I've been using them long before they advertise on the show. Why? Because I know the owner. And he is, by the way, a Rightside ruffian. But the owner of the entire chain is a great guy, and I think the world of him, but I think the world of Southern Immediate Care as a business. Every time I've walked in the front door, clean, professional, friendly. I mean, they can get you your shots, you can get your X-rays right there on the spot. They'll take all ages, like pediatric up to geriatric, and they're open 7 days a week. Get sick on a Saturday, there they are. Southern Immediate Care. You find the location nearest to you, and head on in if you need them, and they'll help you. You tell them, by the way, you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that too. All right, I tell you what, we're in number 3 of the Triple Dipper, and this one's kind of heavy. Wars and rumors of wars. You and I were talking a little bit offline too, Boom. I mean, this is one of those topics it's got a lot of moving parts.
Well, it has a lot of moving parts, and I think that has a lot of questions from a lot of different people. Yeah. Even myself, I just look at it, and we talked just a little bit about it on Friday when Scott Buttram was here.
Yeah.
But we also went into the fact of that, just from our beliefs and where we come from, and we were raised that the Israel is God's chosen people. That's
right.
what we believe.
Right.
But I mean, there's just been so many little things, and what I told you earlier when we were just talking is what I'm worried about is just that one small thing, because everything's so heightened right now.
Yeah.
What happens if there's one small mistake from someone?
Yeah. Well, that's huge. Those are flashpoints.
Right.
When the tensions that created World War I were going on, and then one Serbian prince got shot, it just erupted into World War I. It was that point thought to be the war to end all wars, but of course it wasn't.
But nowadays we have what you just touched on. News doesn't travel as slow as it did back then. Now it travels at a flash and at an instant. And with one thing created, not even that's completely real, that could start something as well. And that's that's scary to think about, that people have the ability to do that just from a computer.
I think this is where, and this was, we talked in my monologue earlier, I talked about the war between darkness and light.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, and let's make no bones about it. It is possible to have peace in the middle of it, but at the same time, it doesn't mean, peace is not head in the sand. All right, you don't get peace from pretending things aren't out there. You get peace from having confidence in the midst of it and having courage to face it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this is a crazy, crazy time, and I think the one that is probably catching the most attention right now is the whole situation with Israel.
Right.
But don't lose sight of the fact that we still got the war in Ukraine going on.
Well, that's funny that you said that earlier today. Everything right now is going on. It is on Israel, and it should be right now. But also, then that is still going on too.
Yeah.
With communications from Russia to China, there's just a lot going on.
Yeah, a lot to monitor,
Right.
a lot to keep your eyes open on, keep your head on a swivel, and then it comes down to, then there's the crisis of leadership that we have, and I don't just mean the House. I mean, I do want to see Republicans get their act together and pick the right leader who can provide guidance and can provide oversight and can provide authority in the middle of all this. But daggum, I have personally zero confidence in the Biden administration.
Well, complete zero confidence. I mean, he went to the beach this past weekend.
He went to the beach this weekend. Not only that, it's one thing to step out of and go, catch a nap or something because you got to catch up because you were up all night in the Situation Room. I get it. There's things, but to go publicly lay out on the beach, sunning himself and sleeping on the beach when all this is happening is like saying, yeah, I don't care. And maybe he does care. Maybe he's staying up to date on all the stuff that's happening. It doesn't look like it. And by the way, leadership sometimes has to recognize that optics do matter. They do.
Absolutely, especially now.
I mean,
These days and age, you got to know that.
Listen, I think I even said in a monologue one time, General Patton used to go to the front lines with flags on his vehicle and sirens blaring. Why? Because he wanted troops to know he was coming. Their leader was coming. But when he left, he went out a little quieter because he didn't want them to see their leader leaving the front lines. Biden doesn't have any idea what that means. He doesn't know what it means for a leader to be present and to recognize that sometimes what that leader does when he's visible can impact things purely on optics alone. Does it mean you're not allowed to be a guy? Just, a dude who actually, eats a meal or takes a nap? No, it doesn't mean that at all. But there is a time and a place, sir, a time and a place. And maybe eating ice cream and laying on the beach and riding your bike around your $2.75 million home on Rehoboth Beach in Delaware is just, maybe it's not the right time. There's an opportunity for that later. But he's taken more vacations, by the way, than, any member of the teachers union ever dreamed of. But all that to say, it's an amazing time to watch. Wars and rumors of wars. Right now, a story I've got here too, by the way. That's right. This one came off of ABC. ABC News, Blinken and Austin both say the U.S. is ready to respond if personnel become targets of Israel-Hamas war. So one article I saw this morning called it a red line. Anytime I see Democrats using the term a red line, I just think back to Obama and Syria, and the next thing you know, he didn't. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, a story that came out last night, says Sunday that the United States expects the Israel-Hamas war to escalate through the involvement by proxies of Iran. And they asserted that the Biden administration is prepared to respond if American personnel or armed forces become the target of such hostilities. By the way, news broke a little while ago while we were on the air that U.S. installations in Syria were under drone attack. And I don't know to what extent or how serious that was. But right now you've got Blinken and Austin both saying that the United States is prepared to take action if necessary. By the way, thank you to Doman from Harvest who squared me away. It's the Eisenhower and the Ford carrier groups that are over there right now. So thank you. I appreciate that, Doman. I got two calls on the line, so let me do this one. Line one first. Is that Jeff Rowe? Jeff from Indiana. Jeff, how are you doing, brother?
Doing pretty good, Phil.
Good.
Got a kind of an itchy leg from all the healing from the vein surgery, but other than that, I'm doing good.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you because I was gone the last part of the week and I didn't get to hear how you doing. So you doing all right?
Yep, doing good. I've got my little hose on, I guess, there, the vein hose or whatever on. It's killing my leg, but other than that, I'm doing all right.
Got those sexy socks on is what those are, sexy socks.
Oh, yeah, man, that's good.
Well, what's on your mind, brother?
It's kind of doom and gloom, Phil, but what we're witnessing in Israel is the triggering of World War III.
Mm. Well, it's possible. I'm praying against it, but I think we have to be cogent enough to recognize that it can get there. It can get there in a heartbeat.
Thank you. I needed that. I don't think there's any way going around it, to tell you the truth, because what's going to happen is Israel is going to basically push the Palestinians into the sea, which was what they need to be done. All the Arab countries around there are PO'd about it because they hate Israel and they basically want to get rid of them anyway. And what's going to happen is that Israel is going to have to do a first strike on Iran to keep them from getting nukes. And if they don't get the first strike in on them, then the second strike will be Iran will strike Israel with a nuke. And at that point, either way it goes, if Israel strikes Iran or if Iran strikes Israel, if Iran strikes first, we'll be in a hot war with them because if they have the means to deliver a nuke to the United States, they will do it because we are the great Satan. Well, and you got China and you got Russia involved in the Iran thing, so it's going to come to big escalation. This is just a trigger.
So So there's a couple of pieces of that I think are slightly different, but I think they still could have the same implications, and that's that I don't think Egypt and Saudi Arabia care at all for the Palestinians, much less Hamas, and I think that the Lebanese are sick to death of having Hezbollah try to run part of the inside of their country. But I do believe that Hezbollah and Hamas are being fueled by Iran, and if Iran takes an overt position, that's the thing that I think could be a serious flashpoint. If Hezbollah gets real involved in this, trying to distract Israel and put a two-front war on them, then I think you got a big problem. But if Iran gets in, then I think it becomes potentially regional because Saudi Arabia can't sit by and let that happen. But hey, Jeff, I hate it, man, but I got somebody else on line too. I got to run to before I go to the break. All right, keep healing up, brother.
Phil.
We'll talk to you. Line 2, Rick from Huntsville. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Pretty good, Phil. I think one thing that was missed on your list of provocations or things to worry about was the threat of domestic terrorism, with the tens of thousands of military-age men from how many hundreds of countries that have come into this country. You can't tell me that a sizable number of them are part of sleeper cells that are just waiting to be activated to attack our power grid, water supplies. Take your pick.
Well, it's funny you say that, and not funny,
and that'll
but
distract us.
But I've got an article here that was next in line in my list of articles from justthenews.com that says there's been a record number of illegals with terrorist ties stopped at the U.S. border. This article came out yesterday. And I don't disagree. I mean, I think that the Biden border policy has been one of the things that is most concerning, and that what we see happening elsewhere could spill over right here. Hey, listen, Rick, I got to go take a break, brother. Thanks for making the call. I appreciate you calling in. All right, Boomer, take us to the break. This is a dark one. Wars and rumors of wars, but I know that I've got an audience out there that pays attention. And this is also, by the way, the kind of thing that we should be praying against and working towards the 2024 elections are. All right, because regardless of what happens elsewhere, we're having an election next year, and by God, we need some real leadership in the White House. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense be like a superpower, we be saying up in here. And I'm just saying, folks, it's go home time. Let me tell you who else has got superpower common sense. That's the folks at ZLA Solutions. So ZLA Solutions. Listen, y'all, I've been telling you now for over 2 years. ZLA Solutions is epic good at helping businesses make their businesses better. If you need help with, I don't know, sorting and containment, quality control, warehousing, logistics, or for that matter, staffing, they can do it. ZLA Solutions is working with major name employer groups all over our listening area and beyond. And so, listen, if you need people, here's the thing. They can do it for you. Recruiting, background checks, drug testing if necessary, all of it. They can get you just a few people you need to fill a few tightly wound and hard to get positions filled, or they can get a whole shift. They can do it all. They can get it for the service industries, for hospitals, for food service, for automotive manufacturing, for you name it. Listen, I always say it's blue collar, white collar, and no collar. ZLA Solutions, they can do it. If you need help, check them out. Their website is zlausa.com. That's ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. Check them out. And by the way, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. Boomer, just so you know, John's getting in there quick. The grades are already in. Whoa. He says, I guess I'll give Boomer an A+. You like how I put the tone inflection in? Yeah. I guess I'll give Boomer an A+, even though his pick'em contest has me down in the dumps today. Phil, you gave a spectacular performance. I'm giving you an A+. Congratulations, you're today's winner. Also, if you want some more extra credit points, hack into Boomer's pick'em page right before game time and change all of his picks. Hey, finishing up this thing we're doing, Wars and Rumors of Wars. Yes, I did cover it a minute ago, but the data shows that 564 encounters of out of 736 terrorist suspects stopped at the border, 564 of those occurred at land border ports of entry, while 172 were between ports of entry, meaning they were trying to avoid ports of entry. We've got a situation going on right now that is not good. In fact, I've got one article here from Daily Caller, dated yesterday. Federals warn that Hamas and Hezbollah could be crossing the southern border. San Diego Field Office Intelligence Divisions of Customs and Border Protection sent a memo out warning that due to the war between Israel and Hamas, there could be encounters of terror-tied individuals seeking to travel to or from the Middle East via transit across the southern border. I mean, this is ridiculous. Anyway, all of which are so basically there's terrorist organizations that we know for a fact that some of their membership is coming across the southern border. And why would that be? Did they have a change of heart and they just want to work at a McDonald's? Did they see something like, hey, everyone can get an Obama phone if they go to the United States? I just really want to live there? I don't know. How about this one? Washington Examiner. In the war in Israel, Secretary Lloyd Austin beefs up the U.S. presence in the Middle East thanks to Iran. Yeah, they say the U.S. has moved now further to bolster its presence in the Middle East with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin redirecting the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group and also activating a THAAD, that's Theater High Air Defense Battery and Patriot battalions in the wake of Iran's behavior. So we're putting more assets in place. You've already got the Forward Carrier Strike Group with guided missile destroyer USS Kearney there already, and here we are now sending the Eisenhower and upping the air defense capabilities. And then you got this. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there more going on? Yes. In Iraq. Iraq? I thought Iraq was peaceful. Not entirely. The State Department on Sunday, that's this past Sunday, yesterday, announced that it has ordered any eligible family members and non-emergency personnel on Friday to leave the U.S. Embassy in Iraq, citing a recent increase in threats. Great. Now, by the way, the new U.S. Embassy in Iraq is like a fort. It is Fort America in Baghdad on the banks of the Tigris River. And when they built that thing inside the green zone, it was like, wow, what in the world? But nonetheless, it says the U.S. military also thwarted a drone attack against its forces in Iraq. And we saw today that reports are saying that there are there are bases that are also seeing drone attacks in Syria with U.S. forces. So all this to say, Victor Davis Hanson is asking the question, Does Iran realize that it is putting itself in growing danger because they're only going to be able to push so many buttons before somebody finally says, you know what, the heck with you, we're going to take it out? Well, we have apparently reports that there have been 83 Iranian attacks on Americans since Biden took office. 83. He's only replied 4 times. He lifted economic sanctions. He allowed them to garner tens of billions of dollars in new oil sales. He sought to pay ransom to get back 5 American hostages at a cost of $1.2 billion per captive. And he greenlit more for Tehran. In the meantime, though, a delusional Iran, it says, is still not fully aware of how loud its bragging and support for Hamas is putting them into an unprecedented and dangerous predicament. For the first time in decades, it says, there is no nation that can restrain Israel from destroying Iran's pawn. And you have to look at it and recognize that sooner or later, Iran's going to get a bloody nose of its own. Heck of a thing. Keep your eyes on the prize, though, y'all. And I meant what I said earlier in the show. Despite all of it, I know where my peace comes from. I know many of you do too. And I believe Philippians 4, 6, and 7 is clear when it says that we should be anxious for nothing, but in all things, through prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. That's peace that the world can't figure out, but we can have it. All right, we love you. Amazing day. More tomorrow. Boomer and I back here at 2. You guys have a great night. We'll see you then.